This is Underdog Portfolio Weekly, hosted by Scott Conn.
What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another Underdog Portfolio Weekly. This is BBM 5 Live Draft 6.0. I have a tortured Jets fan and an Underdog regular on here, Ron Stewart, joining me for tonight's live draft. We'll get to it here in just a second. But, Ron, this is the first time you and I have done a show, just the two of us. I know you've been on Trades in 5 before with Clay. I've watched your streams. You've done many, many Underdog drafts yourself, so this should be basically second nature for you to jump into another one of these. Ron Stewart _ on Twitter. I wanted to ask you why the underscore on your Twitter handle. I know you've probably explained it before, but I've never heard this story. Why the underscore? Couldn't get actually Ron Stewart or what?
That's exactly what it is. The guy who had @Ron Stewart, he has not responded to my DMs. I have a working theory that he might be dead. So rest in peace, the other Ron Stewart. Oof. But that's where we're at. Ron _ Stewart. That's what I got. But yeah, I'm excited to be on here. Rip a draft with you. I've been following you and Ray forever. Feels like you guys have been in the dynasty streets. I'm excited to see you guys in the redraft, underdog streets now too. So yeah, excited.
Yeah, this is my first year, and I've probably done, and I talked about this on the first kind of show on what my plan was going to be this year, but I'd probably done about 25 underdog drafts over the last 3 years combined. And then this year it's like, all right, I'm going to do about 750 of them. So there is no like in between. It is just, it's either all in or leave me alone. So shout out to Ray, who was really like, yeah, it'd be fun to kind of get your spin on these drafts. So good stuff. I'm going to get the board shared. This is going to be my 42nd BBM 5 of the year. Just talk about a little bit for those out there that are interested in kind of the theory behind playing tournaments, whether they're BBM 5 or some of the smaller tournaments. Kind of talk through your process, kind of talk through your draft cadence as well. As a fellow drafter, I kind of want to know what your cadence is. We've drafted against each other in a couple random ones. I'll just tell a quick story. You were in one with me probably the second week or so when BBM 5 opened, and I was actually at the gym in the hot tub trying to draft, and it had shady.
I know where this goes.
And I think I took Jalen Hurts. Pick Jalen Hurts.
You were on my stream with that. I was like, is Scott, like all the guys in my chat were like, Scott's cooking something here. Like he's trying to get a stack that no one else is going to get.
I was cooking the Wi-Fi went out. I had to jump out of the hot tub and be like, dude, I need to get this back. Otherwise it is going to completely ruin the team. I actually think I salvaged it, but do you have any experiences of like having a draft where it goes wrong? And the only way to fix it is to basically say, all right, I just drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, which is going to be ahead of 99.99% of the teams that already have Jalen Hurts, right? He's going to be on a team every league. He's going to be stacked with, I think I took AJ Brown in the first. So he's going to be stacked with AJ Brown. God knows how many times, right? But I have him 2 rounds before he should go. How do I fix this? And my answer was, take as much risk as I can basically at quarterback and not draft a second. I think I took Justin Fields in the last round and, it tried to go as slim as possible, but talk about that and talk about your draft cadence while I get this draft fired up.
I've definitely been there before, especially with these like underdog cardio drafts where you can end up at a gym. You can end up, I've hiked before and, you get to a spot on the hike where it's like, all right, you're not going to be able to get this player in. And you kind of let the wheel decide. It's something that Pete Overzet's talked about. I will say it's a little bit different when you star a player and you get somebody way past ADP. But he's kind of talked about it before where when you just talked about like 750 drafts. When you do this many, who was just talking about it? It might have been Bime4. But he was talking through like, okay, I've done 60 drafts at this point. 3 of them have Amon-Ra St. Brown. And all 3 of my Amon-Ra St. Brown teams also have Ayuk. And that's kind of an issue, because you want different like patterns mixed and matches. So it's not the end of the world if you get auto draft. I think it's actually a good thing in some instances, but then also I got screwed the other day where I got auto draft something because, something will come up. Maybe I'm watching a show, maybe, I'm walking the dog and something happens. I draft Josh Allen in the 3rd round, or no, I draft him in the 4th round. And then in the 5th round, I get Anthony Richardson. And that's just not something that any of us really want to do. But it is an interesting exercise of like, if you just sprinkle those in, you can get like weird looking teams. Maybe you just crush everybody at quarterback. Like you're definitely forfeiting some EV, but it's not terrible to get a different look, a lesser owned look, kind of like a DFS theory kind of thing there. Again, it's not something I would do in every draft, but I feel like I landed the plane all right, where I ended up with like a 2.682. I felt like I made up my exposure, my draft equity at other positions. I got Dalton Kincaid to Josh Allen, like 15 picks past his ADP. So you can kind of make up value elsewhere. So yeah, auto picking, it's interesting because at the end of the day, if you pick a guy and you get him, let's say you get a first round pick in the second round, if he busts, it's still a bust, no matter how much value you're sort of accumulating. So I think that getting a different look isn't a terrible idea. You can go deeper into that, where it's like in BBM, you might want to wait because like that second round player that you're like kind of like, reaching on might end up being like a third round player later on. But in these like snapshot ones where it's like the puppy, I actually don't think it's that crazy to kind of get very weird and kind of reach places, or if you get autoed, kind of puts you in a weird spot. But in terms of like allocating draft stuff, I'm kind of all over the place, where I'm probably like 20 BBMs in. I tried to get some puppies in. It's really just whatever's out there in these drafts, or just whatever's kind of on the menu for Underdog is kind of what I'm looking into. But yeah, in terms of like overall volume though, I did max out the big board. So that was like the pre-draft stuff. Definitely going to max out BBM. I'll sprinkle in the high stakes stuff. I did want to ask you as well, because I've seen you do the chasing the helmet stuff. And I know you're a high stakes guy for sure. So there's some guys out there where, like the Cranes of the world have won BBM before. So it was like a $5 entry really worth their time. I'm curious kind of how you're, deciding like the time investment on kind of these entries.
Yeah, I mean, we drew the 8 spot, so we can talk through our pick, and then I'll answer that. I think for me, I'm really trying to master the portfolio approach and also kind of the DFS part of what you talked about. I think that's fascinating to me. It's something I've talked about with Dynasty, and we are on the clock, so we're at 108. It's been pretty chalk. Bijan went 106. That's where I would have potentially gone had he not been taken. But really, where do you want to go here? It's basically you want to start receiver, running back. You want to go Breece Hall? See what an RB team looks like?
Let's go Breece Hall right here.
All right. Yeah, so back to your question. I mean, I enjoy the high stakes redraft stuff, but when you think about that, man, like there's a opportunity cost that comes with, I think this year we're going to be doing about 50 drafts, 50 teams across FFPC, across Kentucky fantasy football. It's a lot, but with every one of those, man, comes a time opportunity cost. Like I'm still having to set lineups. I'm still having to do waivers, and I'm not to the Chad Schroeder level, who's a very well-known high-stakes player that basically can pay somebody to do all his waivers. Like legit, hey, I have so much skin in the game. I'm just going to pay somebody like an hourly wage to do my waivers. Here's like the cheat sheet. It's like a memo. I send a memo out to the company, and all of my managers run all these departments.
Yeah, some guys just have interns.
My guidance. And if you think about what your time is worth, I mean, would you like to be doing 500 waiver wires every week? And the thing is, you got to do them all like Tuesday morning to Wednesday night. There isn't I can work a week ahead. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, there's a lot of time that goes into it. I don't think I can draft that many teams, man. You know what I mean? And I'm not ready. I haven't done enough Underdog to really say, you know what, I'm going to dive into some of the higher stakes ones. So
that makes
we're
sense.
Up again. RBs. Man. I think Saquon's sitting right there. You want to do it?
I think I'd go receiver here.
Okay, talk me into it real quick. Otherwise, I'm going to go Saquon. 5 seconds. Why receiver?
I just think the running backs we're going to get some 4th round values. We're going to get like ETN later. You're going to get some good looks at running backs
Nico
that just shouldn't
Ayuk?
be there. Let's go Ayuk. All right, there we go. Quick with it.
Okay.
Quick with it.
Okay. Yep. All right. So why running back receiver? I have been very adamant that if I start running back, unless it is a clear ADP value, I'm just tapping running back again, because that's just been my habitual way of drafting. But you clearly talked me out of it at the last minute. So explain further why.
I don't hate it. I've been doing it myself. It's just that I would say, one, if it was JT there, you could really talk me into it. Saquon, I'm not the biggest fan of. And I think it's just structurally the way that your team's going to be, because it's something, because that was kind of my, I mean, I have a lot of 2 running back teams. So I'm not saying that I'm not doing it myself, but I'm trying to force myself to take wide receivers. Jacob Sanderson has kind of talked me into this idea of like, Saquon is probably going to have a higher weekly projected score than Ayuk. But like Josh Allen trumps all of them, which is like, obviously we all know this. I know you're well versed in like the value over replacement stuff. The wide receivers, you could just get so locked out to the point where you can't even really field 3 wide receivers you feel good about. And in these underdog rooms, like the running backs that go, like we don't have a running back dead zone anymore. You know, like they're all properly priced. You know, you're getting like, I mean, in years past, Rachaad White would have been like a 2nd round pick. You know, like late 2nd, and you can now get him in like the 6th in these. So it's kind of like sort of pressing the walls of these environments, you know, and just not getting locked out. And then I guess you can also sort of talk yourself into the idea of like the 3 wide receivers versus 2 running backs. You kind of anchor one in. It's been a while since we've had a double hero RB winner, or not a while. I think that it's been not since 2022, but it's weird, especially because you can also get, you know, Saquon's what? So he goes here 1, 2, 3, 4. He's the RB6. We're going to have a free roll here at this next spot of like the RB8, the RB9. So it kind of depends on how confident you are in that projection of the running back you're taking. Whereas Ayuk, we just got probably like the wide receiver 12, and now we're going to have a bunch of looks at like wide receiver 20s. But you can make the case, of course, that like it's a really flat tier of these wide receivers, which I agree with. I think it's a really tough one. If it was JT there, who I do like a ton, I would have been more into it. But who do we got here?
I mean, ADP wise, we got Kyron, we got Derrick Henry, and then they've really ripped the receivers since we took Ayuk. So if we wouldn't have taken Ayuk, it probably would have been another one off the board.
Do you have a preference between Kyron or Derrick Henry?
No, I mean, I'm pretty even on both. Let's go. What do you think? Let's go Kyron.
Let's go Kyron. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Cool. All right, Kyron it is.
I think you're right. They did. I mean, they just absolutely wiped out all the receivers. I'm not crazy about Pittman there. You could like twist my arm into Tank Dell in the 3rd round, but that doesn't feel great.
Well, and the other issue is I did one earlier where I went Mahomes, Kelsey, and I also took 3 running backs. And then
I'll say that as well.
Like round 9, and then like
Yep.
Jalen Warren falls to me in round 9, and I'm like, damn it, I can't take him because now I'm over invested at running back. I wish I would have traded in that round 3 Travis Etienne for him instead.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or whatever it was like you immediately regret, damn, I'd love to get the volume of James Conner in the 10th instead of the RB I took in. I mean, that may face us here the way the receivers are going. Yeah. We're looking at round 9 or 10 and we're going, why'd we take Kyron again? You know?
Yeah, I think that that's probably the biggest reason is the flexibility you just mentioned, where you're going to get a Rachaad White or a James Conner in a spot that you really like. Maybe they fall 10 picks past ADP. And when you already lock in those 2 running backs up top, it's like, man, I can't take one until round 10, 11, you know, to really catch up. And then like you said, too, there's that pocket where I love if I can get Mahomes to Kelsey, if I can get Lamar to Andrews, I'm really looking for that. But if you take the 2 running backs up top, like you said, then you kind of like limit your optionality as the draft board goes. So I'd say now that you mentioned that, I think that that's probably the biggest reason to just like stomach the receiver in round 2 every so often, just because it opens you up to the other options, I guess. And even here, we're looking at, you know, Laporta. I mean, we're looking at Allen in the 4th.
Laporta or Allen, they both have correlation with what we've already drafted. Not that it matters right this second, but there's natural Buffalo correlation with Breece. We have Breece and Kyron going against each other in week 16, and then we have the Laporta correlation with Ayuk in week 17. So
I think I'd go Allen. I think Allen? If I had a choice, I'd go Allen.
Okay, I'm good with Allen.
I'm curious where you're at with like Laporta and just the tight ends in general. I don't know. To me, Allen is like this clear step above of everyone else, whereas Laporta is just kind of this default number 1 we're drafting here.
Yeah, I mean, Allen is easy to stack later if we want to get Conklin, if we want to get any of the other receivers, if we want to get some of the later Jets receivers, you know what I mean? Like there's other options to build with Allen. I guess my thing with the tight ends have been there's some drafts where I'll see the tight ends kind of fall a little bit. And what feels real gross is when you're searching for, you know, I guess on some other sites that I've drafted where there's more roster spots, I'm more comfortable going later in tight end. But here, it just feels like when you punt tight end, I end up entirely punting it. And then I'm going like round 16, 17, 18, and it's the same guys over. I mean, you can see, scroll to my tight end exposure here. I mean, we're looking down in this range, 19% Fant, 12% Chig, 12% Jonnu Smith, 10% Gesicki. Like I've already hit a lot of these tight ends in combination with each other, and I'm much lower on these guys, Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson. You know, I mean, some of those guys I don't really care for at their price, but it does feel like there might be a little bit of a blind spot there, and I'm not sure. Like, is somebody like Evan Ingram really going to get any cheaper? Or is he kind of is what he is, right? I mean, so I don't know. I'm more into the taking a tight end early. That way I definitely only have to take two, especially if I take a quarterback early. I've been doing a lot of 2 quarterback, 2 tight end builds. Like, why mess around? You know, give me the extra spot at receiver. I mean, we're going to need it in this draft. We're going to need 9 receivers here, probably.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that too. I would say with Laporta, it's probably a fallacy, but I just hate. I mean, McBride went, but like Laporta there, when you know teams are getting that, like Andrews in the early 5th and getting some McBride to slip there at times and getting Kelsey to slip back there, it gets tough for me, especially because I do think if you just told me, because I think that we all agree that round 2 sucks. Like all the wide receivers, like we didn't feel good taking Ayuk there. You just kind of had to. If ADP just like showed up and, you know, we all had the Men in Black thing and Josh Allen was the 301, 212, I think you'd be fine taking him on like McCaffrey teams and just like, or Jefferson teams, you know, like, and if you had to take him in the early 3rd, I don't think it'd be that crazy. That's what his price last year was, like late 2nd, and he paid off there. So like you give me him in the 4th, I have a tough time saying no with Allen.
Yep.
So I think people are scared off that Diggs isn't there, but I don't know.
We're going Kincaid if he falls to us, right?
Oh yeah.
Exactly what we were talking about. Like, let's lock it in, not waste more than 2 spots on each one.
Yep, and then we'll just throw quantity at receiver here. We have a little bit of a wide receiver hungry draft here, but I think we'll be all right.
And there's not really any obvious receivers. Who do you prefer in this range between Godwin, Adunze, Addison, Keenan Allen?
Probably
McConkey. Like, is it when you're in this range where there's no correlation to draft, and it may be moot if we get Kincaid. I'll just lock Kincaid in, then we can continue to talk about it. But when there's no correlation, are you looking at these receivers? How do you break the ties and who you pick? Like right here, I have 0 Keenan Allen.
I'm not taking a lot of Keenan Allen either.
All right, well,
Godwin would have been my guy. Yeah, let's lock in Kincaid. I mean, we're pushing wide receiver here, but I'm down to sort of do it. I mean, I think that you're right with we took Allen, so we need to take Kincaid there. But
how do you decide in that receiver range? Are you looking for like ways where you can correlate based on who's there? Because it really is kind of a receiver dead zone where I've been talking with Ray a lot about this. The more you look at like WAR data and you're looking at receivers in this range, I mean, Rome Odunze, Lad McConkey, Brian Thomas, those guys are strictly being drafted here just for the lottery ticket potential of their profile. That's it. But if you actually look back historically at like rookie receivers going in this range, meaning they're not going and this is this year's receiver economy. So this range in the past would have been 2 or 3 rounds later than this, right? Like receivers going in this range compared to where Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Cooks, Josh Palmer, like the amount of times they hit your lineup compared to each other is minimal difference. Yet we prefer Lad McConkey versus these receivers down here. Yet what is it? Odds Khalil Shakir outscores Lad McConkey or hits your lineup just as many times, like 60-40 at best, yet it's 3 rounds difference. So I think there's a dead spot there and us just thinking like we have a dynasty brain a little bit with receivers, you know?
Yeah, I think I love Xavier Worthy in Dynasty, but I like in the 5th round, man, that's an expensive price to pay on a guy that like I don't know. He's going to be like the 4th guy in targets there. I just don't know. And we're, of course, like the end of season upside is kind of, I guess, the bull case of these rookie wide receivers. But still, I mean, you're going to have Rashee Rice coming on. Kelsey's still there. I like Marquise Brown as well. I'm not the craziest guy about Keenan Allen, but if he gets here, I say I'd be down to take him just for the value. I find myself taking a lot of Keenan Allen, dude.
I have 0 Keenan Allen, and he is a round past his ADP.
Oh,
this feels like fate that we have to take him, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We get like a free 5th round pick there, I guess.
Hey, talk a little bit
about I'm
not
drafting a lot of them either.
I've heard a lot more people talking about the accumulation of ADP just across your portfolio drafts. I was actually thinking just to do a stream with a draft, and my entire goal for the draft was every round that I'm drafting in, if possible, take a player at least that many picks past ADP. Forget about correlation. Just go, all right, round 2. If I'm at pick 17, I have to pick somebody that has a 15 or higher ADP. Like, and just every round, just accumulate ADP value. And then I'll tell you what, it's going to be an uncorrelated roster construction mess probably until you get to like round 13. I bet you it'll be a different team though, and it'll be chock full of ADP value just based on looking at the board and not really caring who I draft. So what's your thoughts on that?
I am somebody where, and I think it takes a lot of humility to just be like, hey, this guy's past his ADP, even if you don't like him. So I think especially in fantasy, it's very easy to get very opinionated. And I definitely understand it as, you know, as a younger guy, especially when I was first introduced to fantasy and like getting takes out in the world. You think you're going to get everything right. You think everything is, you know, this is all thought out. I have the thesis. I have all the data, but things happen, man. You know, like David, what was it, 2021, where David Montgomery, like the last like 7 weeks was just like the RB3 in points per game. Things happen in a given year. Jerick McKinnon was a monster down the stretch one year. And if you can just, I'm trying to find Michael Leone over at Established to Run had a great article like last year where he looked at just like the best performing teams. He looked into like correlation and everything. But one of the things is that if you just simply had a lot of that ADP value, the following ADP value, your team was in a better spot almost every single time. So I'm somebody where I don't like Keenan Allen either, but when we're talking like 10 plus picks past ADP, that's like about my number. I'll give that guy a real hard look, man. Even if it's like, you know, things can get weird where like maybe you took Josh Allen, maybe not Josh Allen, you took like Anthony Richardson, and then like let's say Stroud doesn't go and Stroud is there like 20 picks past his ADP. I'll give it a real hard look, you know, like things that are even like out of structure just to accumulate that value because you're getting like a free pick. I want to say somebody else was kind of I think it was like at DSP on Twitter. He was looking at somebody had like a really early BBM team, and just the way that he accumulated that closing line value from that point in time, taking the values that were on the board. He sort of like ran some sort of like algorithm in Excel that I couldn't comprehend. But it was like, yeah, like this team essentially has like a free second round pick on it, which like when we're grinding edges and we're drafting hundreds of teams, that's pretty massive, you know? So if you can just stack up those mini, okay, this guy's falling 10 picks past ADP, this guy's falling 12 picks past ADP, it's nice to take them. And then that kind of piggybacks on the hold your nose and take wide receivers, just because like the current market right now is you almost have to have enough wide receivers to like get the cookie that is like, you know, a player falling 15 picks past his ADP to have like the flexibility of your structure. So it's something that I definitely look at a ton, where if it's even a player I'm not drafting a ton of, if he's there 10 plus picks past his ADP, I'm not too good for it, you know?
Yeah, it's the basics. We're up in 2. Receivers is really a couple running backs on the board. Kamara, Aaron Jones, Ramondre, Kyler, and Ingram. We're not interested in taking them. So it's really running back and receiver. So I'll try to show you what we got going here.
Oh, boy.
All right, so we are up. We do have some correlation with Jamison Williams, with both Brandon Ayuk and with Keenan Allen. I don't love him, but it does feel like this will be the kind of team to put him on. You agree?
I think I'd take him too. Yeah. I'm sprinkling him in. I'm open to the idea that he can work out. I don't know. It's obviously a very fragile bet, but it's a little bit of a fallacy to the better in best ball thing, but he is somebody that can hit your lineup with like a 20 piece. I do kind of believe in what they're building in Detroit as well. They seem to really like him. Their moves tell us that they like him too, right? Where they don't address the position at all. I believe they let Josh Reynolds walk. Like I can't even think of who's the next wide. It'd be like Donovan Jones.
And it's DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds. They let him go, and they just kept Lee Freeman and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So they didn't bring in a receiver. Even that there's multitudes of guys they could have brought in for super cheap. They could have brought in MVS. They could have brought in Chase Claypool. You know what I mean? Like they haven't dabbled in any of those waters yet. So I agree. It sounds like they're going to give him a real live shot for that role. And you know, I've been sprinkling in some DPJ and Khalif Raymond on golf teams just for the reason of I don't believe in JMO, but yeah, this was actually a team that made sense to take him just given the correlation that we already have. And just back to your point real quick on ETR, they've preached some basic stuff like ADP value, right roster construction, and the last thing is, I'm trying to think what was the last point I was just going to make. ADP value, right roster construction, and I'll get
Probably
to
correlation.
No. Having as many active players as possible. So not mixing in drafts like 3 guys where you're like, man, that guy really needs to win a job out of camp. Like spread those out. You know what I mean? Like for every, I think Dylan Lobb's going to be the 3rd down back. Like don't draft 3 Dylan Lobbs on one team, you know, like you're asking just to have 12 players the rest of the year. So we are up. We can go in any direction. Receivers, I mean, Curtis Samuel is sitting there. It's a little ahead of his ADP. That would obviously stack with Josh Allen. Kamara, Swift, Warren, Moss. What do you think? You want to go with a 3rd running back here?
Let's go Kamara. I think we could go Kamara and like maybe just cut it off at like 4 running backs and do kind of a classic hyper fragile from back in the day.
Kamara, 15 picks past his ADP. So again, I don't have a lot of him, but him and Keenan Allen are they're not on my typical draft list. So this is a definitely a zig draft compared to what I have. So I like it.
Me too. I'm not taking a ton either, but like I said, like if you give me Kamara 15 picks past his ADP, I'll see what it's like for one draft. You know, we'll sprinkle in a Kamara, but I do like this where I kind of do think the foil to this year's wide receiver craze is like Herzig is one of the guys that established the run. He won the first BBM with a team that was like hyper fragile. Was honestly the meta going into BBM 2, where you take four total running backs, you take like 3 in the first 6 rounds and another running back, and you just let it ride with like a 2-4-10-2, where you just throw 10 picks at wide receiver and let it ride. I think that we're kind of set up in a spot here where we could try that. I think to me, that's kind of like if you're building out a way of like, how are we going to beat these teams? Like I think this guy Chuck Wood next to us went like 5 straight wide receivers at the top. If a guy's going to go 5 straight, 6 wide receivers straight. If we're going to be the foil of that, it would be this.
And the funny thing is he's probably going to pull off 4 running backs where you're like, yeah, you know what? That guy probably has a floor of 12 points per game. You know what I mean? Like he's going to end up getting, like you see a draft like that and you go, wow, I went 6 receivers. Then I jammed a tight end in there and I still ended up with Jalen Warren, Tony Pollard. You know what I mean? Like I still got running backs where you could be fine only taking 5 on his team, depending on how fast he rips them off. But there's, you know how many teams I've drafted like that, man? I've drafted 100 teams where I just rip all receivers. And I'm like, there's a lot of people doing this. I don't know if this is actually the way to attack it, especially with what I said earlier about the receiver scoring in the like wide receiver 25 to 50 range. We think Jackson Smith and Jigba's far better than like Josh Palmer, but historically it's not that big of a difference. And then it also matters, what teams do you align the JSNs on? If he's your wide receiver 6, he's going to have to fire in some of the right spots for him to even crack your lineup as many times as the guy that's 5 rounds after him. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I'm pulling away from doing those builds just because the receivers are so expensive. It gets to the point in round 7, I don't even want to draft him anymore because it's Cortland Sutton. It's Curtis Samuel, you know?
And those guys will kill those teams too if you take too many wide receivers. Like you said, like if you start burning picks on like guys who just aren't going to hit your lineup ever, you're just burning like 7th round picks, you know? Like it has to be thoughtful. Like if I start a draft like that, like you could talk me into the draft that he's doing now, stopping at 6 wide receivers there and just kind of letting those 6 ride, maybe 7. But some guys will push that and go like 2-6-8-2 because that's kind of like what we've been told from with that hyper fragile is like, 2-6-8-2 is kind of like the meta 0 RB. Well, maybe if you use one of those picks that you used on a like that Brian Thomas there, is that going to hit his lineup a ton? Like, could that have been? I don't know. He doesn't have a Stroud correlation or anything, but you know, definitely thinking through detours, not just defaulting to that. Like, we'll see how many wide receivers he ends up with, but now you have to be careful. It's like the same thing with running back. You know, you can't take a billion running backs.
If you go 3 running backs, you're going to be pissed if you're in round 11 and there's one you want to take that's sitting there. Just like this guy might be looking at receiver going, man, I really would love to take Rashid Shaheed here, but I can't. Like, he has to. I'm not worried because we're going to be hitting more receivers, right? He's not going to be hitting receivers for the next 3 rounds. Like, he's looking running back exclusively. So let's see.
Yeah, go Shakur.
I was just going to say, Shakir
yeah.
makes sense. These are all the same to me. We can get one of the others coming back, so I'm good with Shakir. I'll stick Jacoby Myers in there because he correlates with Kamara. We could throw him in. Let's see. What else do we need? We're working on – we obviously got Jets build covered. Patriots. There's plenty of Patriots we could still go if we wanted to go in Antonio Gibson as our fourth. Drake May, QB2. We've been talking about this at DD. I've done some drafts where, at what range are you willing to really get gross QB2, QB3? On a team like with Allen, you're probably not going 3 QBs, but my theory would be if you went, and hear me out, we're up in a second. So after this pick, we can talk through it. We're up in 3 picks. Benson, Spears, Caleb, Dobbs, Mike Williams. Let's see what we got here on the board. Josh Palmer.
Dang, Mike Williams went.
I
can't say Mike Williams. I know he would have correlated, but as a Jets fan, he might be one of the more dead picks in this range.
I can't take him.
Yeah, I only do it in correlation. Where do you want to go, Palmer?
Here's my thought on Palmer. Myers is a clear, probably the last shot for us to correlate the Saints Raiders, right? The thing with Palmer, though, is we're going to probably take a Patriot or two, right? Because of the Bills. So I think we go Palmer. It's going to give us that cross week 16 and week 17 correlation because we're already in Buffalo. So we're going to go Palmer. What was I saying? Back to we were just on a good point until we
Mike Williams.
No, before Mike Williams, it was where were we?
Shakur.
It was talking through. It was talking through the.
You were saying something at DD with the 3 quarterbacks.
So you go Josh Allen. I think most people that go Josh Allen are committed to a 2 QB build right off the rip, right? Because you invested so much in him. Well, what are your thoughts on going like Josh Allen, and then depending on who else you have at receiver or running back, going really, really gross at your other 2 QB spots? Like, let's say you end up with Josh Allen and Kincaid, but for some reason you end up with Najee, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Pat Freiermuth. Not Fields. Wentz.
Wow.
Is it worth it? It's a 1 of 1. I mean, it's maybe not 1 of 1. He'll probably get drafted, 50 times, maybe 25 times. But like, I don't know. And it's different because it's a 3 QB build with Allen, which is already not going to be popular, right? Not going to be a lot of 3 QB builds with Allen, but it's also, you're shooting for a 1 in a billion outcome. But I mean, you really are anyway by trying to win a tournament with this many teams. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I've been doing that. I've been sprinkling in just some random players. You could do the same at receiver, but I don't think it's as unique. But just some random players, like, because I was at a point where I was just taking Justin Fields at every round 18 pick that I could. But the problem is Justin Fields is going to get drafted in 99.9% of drafts. Like, he always gets drafted compared to some of these other quarterbacks, which take Sam Howell, for instance. He'll probably only be rostered at about 10% of the BBM entries unless something happens between now and the start of the season. But it feels like that gives you more leverage against the field should he be in there at some point. Whereas Fields, I'm still contending with every Fields team like that exists. Even if I get lucky and I have him on a bunch of teams, a ton of people are going to have him. So me defeating all the combinations of Fields, Freiermuth, Roman, Wilson team really isn't that uncommon. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people building teams like that. So
I think it's a good thought experiment. I think my holdup is on the Allen team part of it, where
fair.
I think if we're talking we're talking week 16, because I guess my thoughts is that if Allen isn't hitting your lineup in week 16 and you spend a 4th round pick on him, your team might be dead already. But I don't mind the idea in these 20 round drafts doing that. And like the super flex, I know the big board was 20 rounds. That's where you can get super, super weird. I'd be hesitant in a BBM. Do you have any preferences with these wide receivers? I would default. I actually don't mind AD Mitchell.
I have
but
very
I could be
little,
talking to any of them.
7% in BBM, but he's one of my lower rostered receivers, so I'm fine taking it. Just
let's go AD Mitchell.
Locking in the 12.5 point ADP value on AD Mitchell.
Oh yeah. So, I love my ADP value. And then also with AD Mitchell, kind of like what you brought up earlier of, all right, well, now I mean, he gets drafted in the second round, right? And in terms of dynasty, we thought he was going to go in the first round. We loved him. Lad McConkey's way ahead of him. And I know his situation's better, but in terms of like prospect profile, you're getting a guy like this is probably where he would have gone in years past, like in this range, like his profile of wide receiver, where like I remember the year of like we were drafting, I hate to say this, we were on Underdog too. We were drafting Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, that trio, like round 8, 9. So I don't think it's that crazy to be, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore. Yeah, Kadarius Toney was in that range too. So I mean, now we're talking AD Mitchell like the 11th, 12th. So I don't mind that it's kind of like an arbitrage play on those rookies in that dead spot that you're not like a massive fan of. Where it's like AD Mitchell, he not a perfect prospect profile, of course, but he is somebody that can hit in a big way, high ADOT downfield guy that can hit your lineup as well. So AD Mitchell, someone that I do mix in here and there, and we get him a nice little past ADP there, so I don't mind him.
Nope. So we're looking up next. We are up in 3 picks. We're currently at a 1-3-6-1. What is this? Probably going to be a 2-5-8-3 build, maybe, depending on if we go 3 tight ends or 2 tight ends.
You could go like 2. You could go 2-5-9-2. You could go like 2-5-8-3. You could push it with 4 running backs if you wanted to. I will say the fact that we have 2 12 bye weeks does definitely make that a little bit more risky. Look, if they're going to keep giving us, like, I'll take Judy here. I know that's like I hate to not give you a player take here. Like, we're making content, but
dude, what did I tell you? I'm fine. I almost came into the night saying, Ron, let's just do a draft where we just chase ADP value.
Yeah, we got suffocated early, and now we're just catching the falling wide receivers.
Yep. And that sets
Judy's
us up.
Not a bad post type guy either.
We're going to need a QB2. It sets us up with no correlation really with Judy, but it sets us up. If Watson falls past his ADP, I'm fine taking Watson QB 22 or beyond, wherever. He's another one that I don't mind kind of planning to get depending on where he goes. And there's still New England options that we can take. I was going to say Jalen Polk. There's a shot he comes back to us. I would say probably less than 20%, but if he does, that'd just be another guy. Ray's really in on Pop Douglas. He's been taking him for
me too. I was going to tell you, because I know you were talking arbitrage opportunities with like Palmer versus these guys. Like Demario Douglas, you could get him in like the 15th round for free. He's not exciting for best ball, but in a build like this where we just kind of need points, especially early on, and we're waiting for guys like AD Mitchell to come on, I love Pop Douglas. He's one of my highest owned. I probably have like over 20% Demario Douglas right now. He's just very easy to click.
Let's see where I'm at on Pop. It's okay. So 17%.
Yeah.
In BBM, I'm fairly high on him, and as you can see, I clearly prefer him to somebody like Corley, who I have almost 0 Malachi Corley, 2%. And this would be a team where if he falls to us, natural for us to take Corley here. So, all right.
I found myself taking some Corley recently.
I mean, you're a Jets fan.
I'm a Jets fan.
Somebody on other Jets weapons besides Tyler Conklin. He is everyone's going to take him on. I mean, there's going to be a billion Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin teams. There's like Conklin is the 4th piece for everybody on those teams. But where are you at with all the other Jets receivers? I've seen some Lazard drafted. Is it wild?
I was going to say, if you want to talk, get in weird with like the Khalif Raymonds of the world. Look, I'm not a hot take artist, but if you were to tell me Allen Lazard outscored Mike Williams in fantasy football this year, it wouldn't shock me. Allen Lazard, he is what he's always been. He was bad last year. He hasn't all of a sudden just like fallen out of his prime and off the face of the earth. He's always been kind of this limited receiver. And Aaron Rodgers has this way, people like it or not, of kind of getting his guys onto the field that he likes and he trusts. He likes Allen Lazard. Mike Williams, the thing that really scares me about Mike Williams is kind of like what happened to Michael Gallup, right? This contested X receiver. It just zapped him where he was just awful off of the ACL. Same thing could happen for Mike Williams. If you want to get even weirder, man, like there's some rumblings on like the Deep Jets Twitter that like Corey Davis could come back. I'm not saying that I would take him in the 18th round, but if Corey Davis came back, Xavier Gibson is a guy that people are talking about. I have a tough time with Gibson because I do think they love Corley so much. I do see now. I will say early beat reports are coming out that Gibson's a starting slot. If I was a betting man by like week 4, I would expect Corley to be there. Like I don't know if you saw the clip. It makes me infuriated. Joe Douglas, yeah, he's screaming yes as they draft AD Mitchell. He's calling everybody and their brother, he's trying to trade up in the second round to take Corley the entire time. They love Corley. He gives me flashbacks to our Darius Stewart. Remember him? Old Jet. Same profile. So that's the scary part, but you're getting a guy, third round receiver is going to run routes fairly early. Like I said, like Gibson was okay last year, but he was like, I think he might have been sub 1 yards per out run. Like he wasn't a real NFL receiver. He was more of like the special teams guy that he beat out McCole Hardman for the special teams role and then kind of started taking end arounds and stuff. I don't know that he'll ever be like a real receiver, Gibson. So that's kind of why I see Corley. I think he can be out there early, get some scheme touches. I'm not crazy about him, but I think he has a path to playing time, which I think is a good thing to sort of hunt in like that 14th, 15th round area.
All right, we are up in a pick. We still only have 3 running backs. Any interest in Jalen Wright or Antonio Gibson here? Those would be the 2 for me that I would consider. There goes Jalen Wright. So it would be probably Gibson. We could pivot, go with another receiver. We're probably getting close to max at receiver. We're probably going 9. We have 7. Douglas, we may have to take him here if we want him. It's a little bit of a reach, but questionable. What do you think?
I think I like the Gibson call. As like our RB4.
That's where I was leaning. It gives correlation for a couple spots, and we can push Pop Douglas another round. It's always tricky when you're on a stream. You're like, oh man, Pop Douglas will go 1 pick, but him or Corley should be right back to us, right? That should be a sweet spot where one of those comes back to us. So that's going to be the plan in round 15 or round 14 when it comes back to us. So what do you think when you get to this point? You already have Allen and Kincaid. We've pretty much literally not talked to tight end or quarterback at all. What do you like to do at your QB2 spot? Do you like to chase a stack with a receiver? Or I'll tell you what I like to do is I like to look and see, all right, which one of these quarterbacks is maybe a little bit of a falling knife? And can I pair? Like, I wouldn't hate ripping Geno Smith, Noah Fant. I like having the opposite QB. Even if I have Allen Kincaid, I like stacking quarterback and tight end. It feels like at this range of QB and with the tight end position, like tight end is by far the least impactful in Underdog. Everybody knows that. And whatever quarterback we draft, they're fighting with Josh Allen every week. Even Josh Allen's mid games are going to be tough for Geno Smith to overcome. It's like, it kind of feels like stacking if you're going late second QB, Levis, Chig, Fant, Geno, you know what I mean? Like, and prioritizing getting the stack. It was Carr, Juwan Johnson before. Like, there's plenty of them that we could do. Even Bryce Young, Jatavian Sanders.
I was going to say Henry May. We got sniped out of that.
Oh yeah, we got sniped on Henry. I mean,
I like that call too. Of like quarterback tight end, because it's a more like, if you can get that in your lineup, it's almost more impactful because you have so many bolts in the chamber for wide receiver, running back, whatever. But if you can thread that needle of you get the tight end and then you also get the quarterback points, I agree. Like I have some teams where I almost target like this Allen to Kincaid and then backup quarterback to tight end 2, just because it feels like tight ends, this is fantasy 101. Tight ends score touchdowns. And if you can get a tight end to score 2 touchdowns and that quarterback pops in your lineup too, it could be enough to push you over the edge in like a tournament or something.
Ron, we got sniped on Pop and
we got double sniped. Jeez.
Yep. Shouldn't have said anything, but that's that's life in these draft rooms. So what do you think about Wandale?
That was my name too. That was my name too. I like Wandale.
So this gives us now taking Wandale here probably takes us out of the running for a Lazard or probably the last Bill receiver, which I've been taking Chase Claypool, but we can go Wandale.
I think we can do that. It opens us up for Daniel Jones later, assuming they don't have bye week 12.
Where are you at on Giants tight ends? Because I could get by on. Are you comfortable taking like Theo Johnson? I'm not really, because I think there's a damn good chance it's a 0, but gives us another shot probably.
You could talk me into it. Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. We actually I didn't realize that we have the Chicago bring back on the Seattle stuff. So that's something I like too. I like Fant. I know you're an RAS guy as well. I'll never quit Fant either.
Well, I mean, in Fant for what he is, I think he's just being punished for some draft fatigue versus what he truly is. I mean, you look at somebody like Cole Kmet versus Fant on like a per route basis, and it's hard to be like, how can I prefer Cole Kmet? And literally Cole Kmet is getting the offensive coordinator that people bitch didn't use Noah Fant. And it's like, to say you're taking Cole Kmet 5 rounds ahead of Noah Fant makes no sense to me, but that's
no sense.
These range of tight ends are, we did get sniped on Geno Smith. That one's out, but not too worried about QB2 here.
I agree on that stuff though.
We're at 1-4-8-1. So we're probably looking at one more. We're looking at one more of each position, most likely. There goes Will Levis.
Yeah.
So that option is out. Are you totally... I know some people have made the argument that it's okay to take a quarterback in the same game as your Josh Allen. I'm not a fan, but I mean, how far would Rodgers need to fall for you to take him, given we're looking at almost 2 rounds past ADP when it gets to us?
The issue is he also has the same bye week.
Oh, that's true. That is true. And that's the same with Stroud and Lamar. They have the same bye week.
Yeah.
So not that you're ever taking them together, but we were talking about that earlier in our Discord. Like, if you're really heavy on Texans and Ravens, I've seen some teams that are like 4 or 5 deep, and then they also tack on Noah Brown, Tez Walker, and it's like, dude, you have 9 players on bye in the same week. Like, you're going to get beat by 50-plus points in your pod that week. You know what I mean? That's a lot to make up in a short best ball season. So,
no, 100%. I like to okay, one at each position. I like 2. I mean,
we'll take Conklin's pick if he's there. I think if Conklin's there, we take him.
I say the other issue, he has the same bye as Kincaid.
Do you care about that at tight end as much though?
At tight end, I can stomach it. If you can stomach it, I can stomach it. Man, okay. Baker's gone.
You can always pivot and go. If we truly wanted to do there goes Rodgers. So it's Conklin. We could take. I'm fine taking Fant. We could wait for Jonnu Smith instead. I'm kind of leaning Conklin though, because we have Kyron.
Let's do Conklin.
Yeah, let's go Conklin. I only have 7.
I agree. I think. I mean, you take a 0. I mean, there's going to be some weeks where you take like a 2.5 at tight end. Like, you know.
Okay, let's talk about this. Would there be any consideration for a 3 tight end build here, or no?
Yeah, you could talk me into it to cover up the bye. I think if you ask me what position it would come from, it'd probably be running back, unless Gibson is bye week 12, but I think he's not.
We have Kamara and Brees on the same bye, but then Gibson and Kyron different buys. So
it's a little extreme to cut it off at 4 running backs, but it would be kind of a like I said, that hyper fragile build that one early on in best ball was just a 4 running back build, but I don't know if the bye week overlapped like that. So I'm definitely willing to hear it out. What quarterbacks are left here? I was actually going to throw out there Bo Nix, Greg Dulcich if you were looking for a quarterback tight end thing.
Very minimal of either one of those, so I'm not opposed to it. Here's where we're at. Bryce could go Bryce to Tavian Sanders. You been doing that at all? I mean, we already committed to. I don't want to commit our quarterback based on we're going to take a 3rd tight end. You know what I mean? So I'm fine.
I agree.
Whatever the quarterback, like, we got to probably pick our quarterback here. There goes Bryce. So if we want a QB2, it's probably right here. It's probably Drake May, Daniel Jones, one of those 2.
I say we go probably Daniel Jones. I don't think let's go Daniel Jones. I think we can lock that in. Yeah, we took Wandale. We have to bring back an AD. I think that's playable.
Okay, so we're done at quarterback, potentially done at tight end. Let's go through, look at running back and receiver just to see what we want to take at the end. You can look at these, but probably can scroll a little down. Let's see.
Everyone's taking him, but I do kind of like the Slayton angle with Daniel Jones. It's like a fun round 18. You do already have Wandale though, so like we don't have to force that. I actually I don't think I've taken him yet, but I'm not scoffing at the Chase Claypool round 18 stuff. I know that some underdog guy posted he had like, I don't know, he posted he had like 60% Claypool or something. Everyone piled on Twitter like maybe a few weeks ago. I mean, that's obviously an egregious ownership to have on him, but I think he's draftable in the 18th round for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you're probably not losing much on like he's not going to go any further than where he is, right? He's the 4th Bill receiver, so he's going to stay where he is. So it may change. I think the alternative would be to go Lazard, but now we have three Jets, and if we wouldn't have taken Conklin, I would have been fine with Lazard. But I don't really want to load up on Jets just for one game. I'd rather go Claypool because that probably gives me more options for production throughout the year just because I'm already in on Allen. And all we have is Allen and Kincaid. We didn't take any of his other receivers. You know what I mean? So I'm fine taking Claypool. Where I don't like taking Claypool is I've seen some teams go like Allen, Shakir, Samuel, Claypool. And I'm like, dude, 2 of those guys are going to be zeros every week. You know what I mean? Like probably.
I think we took Shakir on this team.
Oh, did we take Shakir? Oh, yeah, we did.
We have Shakir, Kincaid, and Allen.
My own team. Yeah.
So, what's your
is that too many Buffalo receivers? Is that too many Buffalo weapons? Or
I'm not sure. I think it's a good question. I am curious. Would you be like? Would you feel better about taking Ty Johnson or Chase Claypool in the 18th round?
I think if I'm going running back, I would go somewhere different. I wouldn't necessarily care about the correlation. I like the idea of if Slayton falls to us, just go with Slayton because we did draft Daniel Jones. It's not like we're just looking for A.D. Mitchell, Wan'Dale Robinson. Like we did draft Daniel Jones, so it makes sense to kind of hedge our bets on Wan'Dale with.
I agree.
Ray was talking earlier
about the play.
Ray was talking earlier about the Jalen Hyatt role in college versus where he played in the NFL, and he was a slot receiver in college, right?
Yep.
But he played less than 5% of his snaps, and he played a lot of snaps last year, like 380 snaps or something like that. But he didn't play in the slot. So it's like it's literally like him versus Slayton, and it's hard to not say that Slayton's going to get the first crack. Like he's got the rapport with Daniel Jones, you know what I mean? But Hyatt barely played with him. So I think that's where we go. And then we'll decide our 8th rounder here in a second, or 18th rounder in a second.
It's tough. I liked Hyatt too, but I mean, now they bring in Neighbors. He's going to play a decent chunk of his stuff out of the slot. You have Wan'Dale who's going to play stuff out of the slot. It's like, why draft him if this was the rollout plan? But I don't know.
Any running back interest you here? Any at all?
Not yet, unless we get sniped. But in terms of like for 18th round stuff, it depends on how. I don't know. It depends on how bad you want the correlation. I actually find myself. I was going to say Clyde, and Chucky takes him. I would go Slayton here, and then we can go. We can kind of debate running back versus tight end on the next pick.
All right, so running backs. We're still looking at Deontay Foreman, Tank Bigsby, Audric Estime is one that. I've been taking some Clyde. Audric Estime is one that some sharp people have been taking. I don't know, but that's another one that comes to mind. Eric Gray's got a little correlation, but now we have 3 Giants, so that's probably a little too much on the Giants end.
You drafted any Colts? Yeah, I was going to say Colts backups. That's a tricky one. I like Toll coming out. We're getting reports that Sermon's the 2, which doesn't really.
I kind of feel like in a half PPR, if there's a Taylor injury, like they would give Sermon the first shot at. We need somebody down by the goal line. Like I'm not confident in either one of them putting up like Zach Moss type production. But if you're telling me which guy could have 2 touchdown games, it's probably more so Sermon than it would be Evan Hall.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what the hell do I know? I've been taking some Samaje Perine, and people don't get that one.
I know you've been pumping the Samaje Perine. You think he stays in Denver? Or is it kind of a, I don't care where he goes. He's just always had a role and kind of just sticks around in backfields.
I think there's a world he goes back to Cincy if he's not in Denver, which would be Chase Brown managers would be pissed off if that happens because they would play him. But I'm kind of liking the Trey Sermon pick.
Yeah,
all we have is A.D. Mitchell, and I don't have any Trey Sermon. I've been taking Evan Hall if I draft any Colts, so let's go Sermon. All right, so we are done, Ron. I'm going to go back to the team. And let me get out of we'll keep it on this draft screen. So we ended up with a 2-5-9-2 build, which is pretty common when you take Josh Allen and Kincaid both inside the top 5 rounds. Like we essentially bought our build that early by committing. Had we gone 3 tight ends, especially we didn't take Conklin super late. We still took him in the 15th. It wasn't like we got him in the 18th. You know what I mean? So it would have been a decent amount of capital put into tight ends. But 2-5-9-2 build, Allen and Daniel Jones at quarterback, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, Antonio Gibson, Trey Sermon at running back, Brandon Ayuk, Keenan Allen, Jamison Williams, Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, A.D. Mitchell, Jerry Jeudy, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Darius Slayton. And then Dalton Kincaid and Tyler Conklin. Looking at our game stacks by week. 4 game stacks in week 14 or week 17, 3 in week 16. I usually want this to be at least 3 for both of those weeks. Some of ours are, do we really consider a couple of these, Antonio Gibson with Josh Palmer? Okay. Technically it's correlation. I don't know how correlative it actually is, but gives us pieces of multiple games on both sides. So what do you think about the team? Is this kind of unique for you? Have you drafted more similar like these 2-5-9-2 builds, or what do you think?
Definitely more unique for me, but I had fun doing it, where I do think that this is obviously like wide receivers the weak part, but I do think that building teams like this and kind of loading up on the running backs early, like you were talking about, and just getting these falling values on wide receivers as like everyone else is loading up on those Jalen Warrens and Brian Robinsons. If there was going to be a way to build a super team that these 2-6-8-2s can't compete with, it would be building a team like this. You get the running backs early, you get a Breece, you get a Kyron, you get a Kamara 15 picks past ADP. And then you hope that this is one of those years where I'm trying to think through. I mean, we've had it in the past, where like McLaurin's this like stud in like super late in redraft. I think this is from the same year too, but like DJ Chark when he broke out on the Jaguars last year with Nico Collins, you're just hoping that you get like 3 of those guys, right? 3 or 4 of those guys, and you look up and you all of a sudden have the super team where you have like 3 top 8 running backs in fantasy. You have a decent stable of wide receivers, and you just have a gap at running back. You probably also need McCaffrey not to be, the greatest of all time again and put up 25 plus points. But in a year, and like you're saying, we have to thread a needle regardless. So in a year where McCaffrey doesn't work and the wide receiver teams can't make up ground that we just put up at running back, that's kind of what that would look like if a running back heavy team was to win. And I do think that the pendulum's going to swing. We've seen, I know Corain and Liam Murphy won with double hero RB builds where they started 2 running backs up top and they did, I think 2-5-9-2. And then last year was like a 0 RB type team where he didn't take a running back until like round 6 or 7. These things swing all the time. We're now, we're kind of just reacting to what happened last year. Everyone wants 0 RB, all the wide receivers up top, and maybe it'll win again, right? We saw back-to-back double hero RBs happen. But I do kind of like you said, zigging when everyone else is zagging and sprinkling in these teams where, if the meta wasn't to win, what would it look like? And I think it would look something similar to this.
Oh, you made a really, really good point there. If you're going to build a team like this, we did not plan on taking Kamara, but ADP 76, we got him at 89. So that kind of geared towards, okay, now we're definitely hitting receiver like 6 of the next 9 picks. But we were still able to nail Keenan Allen, 11 picks past ADP. We got Josh Palmer, 7 past ADP. We got A.D. Mitchell, 13 past ADP. We got Jerry Jeudy, 12 past ADP. So that range where we had to hit receivers, right? The board knew we had to hit them. It did correct itself from all the receivers that went early. Those teams were probably sitting there going, because I've been in their shoes where I go, damn it, I have 6 receivers and I could easily build a Watson back stack with Jeudy. I'd love to take him at 140 when he's ADP's 125, but I can't because I've already used 6 of my 7 picks on receivers. You know what I mean? And you have to pass them up. So at least we did buy back some ADP value stacked on top of the Kamara pick. So I think it's a unique team. I got some players that I don't normally take. I don't take a lot of JMO. I don't take a lot of Keenan Allen. I don't take a lot of A.D. Mitchell. I rarely take Daniel Jones just because I'm pivoting in different positions with quarterbacks. So that's another unique one. And then we got some Daniel Jones weapons with Wandale and Slayton. I don't think I have any teams with that trio. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. I enjoyed drafting. We will remember this. It is documented on the stream. So if you are correct and this ends up being the hedge to what everybody else is doing, nobody will be able to dispute that you helped me build this team. So I appreciate you for coming on. Anything you want to share, man, that you're doing? I know you're drafting a ton of your own drafts and putting out your own content. So talk about it.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I have the Ron Stewart YouTube channel, just Ron Stewart on YouTube. I post fantasy football videos there, Dynasty in the offseason. Now we're starting to really ramp towards redraft here, where I was just like today, for the first time, putting pen to paper on guys that I'm drafting and redraft that I love. And it's a fun time of year where you kind of go from a fresh sort of take of the landscape. We're drafting players. You might draft somebody now that you don't really know, that you don't really like later on. But yeah, you can find me Ron Stewart on YouTube, redraft videos there, and I stream every Monday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. I do like a draft or two, usually a BBM, and just kind of talk through my thoughts on the clock, talking with the chat and stuff. So that is all there. And you can find me at Ron Stewart or at Ron Stewart. No, Ron Stewart _ my bad, on Twitter. I know we were talking earlier about that. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And again, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Good vibes to hopefully the other Ron Stewart that eventually will catch one of your streams somewhere and say, you know what, I can probably DM this guy and say, you know, how much would you pay for that Twitter handle? Would you pay? You don't need to say it publicly, but I'm sure you could negotiate behind the scenes, right? Like somebody would.
I think my max would be. I would pay a couple hundred. Maybe somewhere in that area. I think, like, I don't know. If the guy's like, give me $1,000, you'd be like, it's just not worth it, man. Like Twitter, I don't know. Twitter's not driving. It's not filling my pockets in any way, I guess is how I would put it. But it would be nice to have.
Correct. So yes, check Ron's work out. Ron Stewart _ until he actually gets the Ron Stewart handle. If you're not signed up for Underdog, what are you doing? Promo code ALLGAS. You can get up to a $250 deposit bonus. Draft with us. Ray and I are doing drafts all the time. You'll see us in draft rooms pretty much constantly. And then, check out everything over at Destination Devy. I mean, we're doing our own Dynasty content. We got all the tools. Look for kind of a revamp coming pretty soon to the Destination Devy site and everything. So check it out over at destinationdevy.com. The Patreon is patreon.com/ALLGAS. And that is it. Good luck to this team. Thank you for everybody that tuned in, and we will sign off. Bicho.